Hello, yes, that's right. It's Joe here for Joyrider TV, live from Joyrider TV Studio 2. Just moved in, which is why, though I'm an hour and a half early, I'm actually 7 minutes late. So thanks for tuning in at this new time. Sorry for the short notice. Yeah, it's just because things come up sometimes and plans have got to change. And on this occasion, yes, plans have changed. So I'd say so far, hello to Jan Leo, who was featured in the last Show Us Your Cat with his new Tornado. That thing is looking an absolute beast. Maybe even we'll be seeing you on the start line. I think the Europeans next year are rumoured to be at somewhere on Lake Garda, Italy. So that would be nice to see you there. So I'm just having a little rummage down here, see if I can make the arrangements a little bit better, or will the whole lot just come crashing down? Sorry about it. And there, yeah, I just wanted that there, just like that. Okay. Jan Leo's Tornado, very nice. We did, of course, see Jan Leo before with his Dart 18, which there was a little bit of his Dart 18 in the last Show Us Your Cat as well. If you haven't seen it yet, then maybe you should take a look. Anyway, who else? Jan Leo says we're racing F18s on the Tornado last weekend. Unfortunately, we weren't faster, although a seasoned Tornado sailor gave him some tips. How do you set your mast rotation upwind, jib traveller upwind? Well, given the results at the World Championships, I don't know if I'm the right man to be asking anymore, but this is what we're doing with the mast rotation. Firstly, so if we take, this is, let's say this is the leeward hull, there's the daggerboard case, there is the back beam. My board mounting solution today is a little bit wobbly, but I will attempt to make things better for next week. A little bit short of time this week. Okay, so here's our boat, and the way that we are talking about the mast rotation on any type of boat is we're talking about what the spanner bar, so we've got the mast like this, that would be the mast track there, and then you've got the spanner bar, which basically gives the mast a load of leverage, and then there'd be some sort of line tied off the mast there. So we're talking about what the spanner bar is pointing at for different wind strengths, different points of sail. But on the Tornado, what we're looking at is, and there's the shroud, that's another handy reference point, is in the light winds, we're pointing the spanner bar, so it's just behind the shroud. So the way that it works is this line here, we then have the boom doing something like that, and then this line would go to a cleat on the boom. This is the most simple system that is still quite common amongst a lot of different boats. So this line just restricts the mast from moving any further. So the first thing is, when you're setting the mast rotation, you need to have the main sheet and the traveller in the position where you're going to have them on that leg before you can set the mast rotation. Because if you have the traveller out, then, and you set your mast rotation thinking that's going to be right for the first leg, it might not be, because when you bring the traveller in, it might change everything. So set the boat up as you will sail it in the conditions, and then set the mast rotation according to the conditions. So light winds, we're having it pointing just behind the shroud. As the wind increases and you're able to lift the hull, we're then going to point the mast rotation at the back of the centerboard case. So we're just bringing it in slightly. And then when it's, and we're going to keep it there until you get to the point where you're getting really overpowered and you've got all of the downhaul on. And then with the Tornado specifically, we're then going to be bringing the mast rotation about halfway between the centerboard case and the back beam. And that is going to be our maximum amount of mast rotation that we're pulling on. If this is for the Tornado, and these positions I actually got off the many-time world champion Kostas Trigonis, who just won the Worlds this year as well. So I think it's a fairly good source of information, I think you'll find. And then with the jib car position, there's our jib track. What we want is we want to be able to pull the jib in fairly tight, but without the leech of the jib fouling on the spreaders. So there is a measurement. In fact, I've got this written down just here. In fact, I think I have. I just happen to think that I've got this written down. If you give us a second. No, I haven't got it written down. I'm having a look. No, I haven't got it written down. But yeah, I'll put it in some comments later on. If you ask me in the comments, then I have got it on my computer somewhere, and I'll give you that measurement. But it would be about 2/3 of the way out in light winds. And then when you get to this position that you're pulling the mast rotation in because you're overpowered, then we'd let the jib track go pretty much all the way to the end there. So there you go. There are some settings for the Tornado. I hope that is helpful for you, Jan Leo, and I hope that you start finding that boat speed against the F-18s. The Tornado, in my experience, is more difficult, especially in the light winds, as you will have seen, to get that kind of performance out of. I think it takes quite a lot of time practicing on it and just getting used to the feeling, how fast the boat should go, what sort of angles you can get. So it requires more time, whereas an F-18 is a bit easier just to jump on, and the boat will go faster without as much practice. So there you go. All right, Jose, what's up? How was your Tornado adventure? Yes, it was very good. I learnt more about light wind tornado sailing than I was anticipating, but it's been a very valuable experience. Once again, thanks to everybody for supporting us on our expedition to go to the World Championships. Yeah, and I think with a competition, if you're doing badly in the competition like we were 2 weeks ago, although it is a tough pill to swallow, you will learn so much more from doing badly than you will from doing well. If you do well, then you're just going to carry on doing exactly the same as what you've always done on the boat, and you're not really going to go searching for anything else. You're going to go, all right, we're doing well, this is fine. You're not going to learn anything. Whereas if you're doing badly, you are going to do everything in your power to improve your technique in the conditions that you've got. And that is exactly what we did. So we sought out as much information as we could and adapted our technique somewhat. So there you go. It was very good though. Lovely gyros in Thessaloniki. Nick, hello, glad you can make it. And we've got Matt, who Hope all is well. Yes, all is well, Matt. Matt was one of the Wildwind staff members this year. An excellent addition to the team, especially when it came to reaching things off high shelves or carrying heavy items. We've literally just finished doing pack up. So so what's been going on at Wildwind? We said goodbye to our last guests on Sunday, just gone, and the weather forecast has been absolutely shocking. It's been like an absolute brown ring sitting on top of us, waiting to dump. And so we were really under some pressure to get the whole packing up of all of the boats done as quickly as possible. So we actually got it all done in 2.5 days with a little bit of preparation beforehand. And so unfortunately, because we were under this sort of time constraint, I didn't get round to filming any of the deconstruction process, just because we couldn't put anything away while it was wet. So we just did everything as quickly as we could so that we could dry everything, get it stored. It's all stored now. Everything is safe. I've still got Hobie 16 number 2 on the beach, so I could do some work on it. But other than that, everything else is packed. I think it was something like 56 boats we put away in 2.5 days. So that's not too bad. And a big tip of the hat to all of the guys who are involved with that, as opposed to the ones like Matt, who left 2 months ago because he knew it was coming. He couldn't handle it. It's too much of a job. All right, we've got Kush in Michigan. How you doing? Good to have you on board. Once again, sorry for the last minute schedule change for this week. It's just there was a scheduling conflict, and unfortunately the other item could not be moved. So I had to bring this session forwards slightly. And I think we are perhaps getting to that phase in the year where I might start doing the Q&A at this earlier time, because I'm not on the beach anymore, so there's no need for me to leave it until 5:30. Stick it in the comments. What if you had a choice of when the Q&A would be? Let's say that choice is between, we're talking Greek time here, between 3 in the afternoon and 5:30 in the afternoon. What would be the best time for you? There we go. There's a question straight back at you. All right, Jose, share some of the regatta details and how crazy it was without the wind. Well, if you saw while I was there, I was posting 1 or 2, sometimes 3 videos each day of the action from the World Championships. We're also going to be having a Show Us Your Cat special, which is going to be coming episode 115, which isn't the next one. It'll be the one after that. While I was at the event, I went around the boat park, taking a look at some other boats, talking to some of the competitors. And there's, even within the Tornado class, there's some really diverse boats. So that'll be, I think you're going to enjoy that. I think there'll be 5 or 6 boats in that episode. So that is going to be not the next one, but the one after that. So that is coming up soon. Greg, been a couple of weeks since I watched live. Great to see you at the Worlds in the last few videos. Thanks very much, Greg. And thanks for your continued support. And thanks for tuning in. And we've got Jasmine in Hong Kong. Hi, Jasmine. Great to have you with us. And then we've got Jeff in North Carolina. I'm going with that. Professor Joe is in the house. Yes, I am in the house rather than down on the beach. So it's, yeah, the beach is all pretty much done. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be doing any Q&A from the beach, because I did find it very nice doing it from the workshop, where I had a whole workshop full of pieces that I could present like this Whereas here in Studio 2, I've got nothing. There we go. Hello, Robin in Florida. Great to have you on board, as always. All right, Jan Leo, thanks for the great tips. One more question. How to reach max speed on the Tornado? Point of sail, mainsail, traveller. Thanks for your input and commitment. Thank you. Also, that is, of course, one of my favourite questions of how to go as fast as possible. There are two different kind of schools of thought with the Tornado of when is it going to go faster. The first and the biggest, juiciest question is it with the spinnaker up or is it on a two-sail reach? Some of you may be thinking, well, surely with the spinnaker up, it's going to go faster because you've pretty much doubled your sail area. Surely that's going to make it faster. Well, yes, with the spinnaker up, you are doubling your sail area, but the spinnaker has got a lot of depth to it, which means, don't know if I can draw a picture for this, but it means that you have to keep turning more downwind a lot earlier than with two sails. Because of the depth in the spinnaker, you can't flatten it off so much, which means you're not necessarily going to get a higher boat speed, but you will get from, if we're talking upwind, downwind, you are going to get from A to B so much quicker with the spinnaker up, because the spinnaker is just going to drag you down there very quickly. But for ultimate top speed, I feel it is with two sails. And like with the 16 or any other boat, to get the top speed, what we want to do is start off sailing on a beam reach. This is the same for everything. In as much wind as you can. That is the trick to going really fast. Sail in a lot of wind. And then get double trapezing at the back. And then every time the hull lifts, what that means is some of the energy that could be making the boat go faster is actually being used to lift the hull. So you don't want to be wasting that energy lifting the hull. So instead, if the hull lifts, we'll turn more downwind as long as we can keep that windward hull out of the water. And then if we get here and the hull's still lifting, we'll turn more downwind. If it's still lifting, we'll turn more downwind. If we get this far downwind with the hull lifting, double trapezing, two sails, then that is pretty much as fast as we're going to be able to get the boat to go. Now, with the sail positions, ideally, you'll have the crew working the jib, because it's going to be that windy that you are going to want to have the downhaul on pretty hard, if not maximum, if you are going for the top speed. If it's lighter wind and you're going for big speeds, then don't pull the downhaul on as much. Keep a bit of curve in the sail. But if it is getting windy, downhaul maximum. And then if you're not able to sail with a lot of main sheet tension on, I see that the board is a little bit off the screen there. Yeah. Just saw that, Willis. What am I saying? Yeah, if you can't have the mainsail in tight because you've got too much power, then let the traveller out a little bit so that you can have the main sheet cranked in. Same as any other boat, you want to have the main sheet as tight as possible when on the sheet in. So then that means you have to work with less main sheet to maintain the control. If you've got the main sheet loose, So if perhaps you're sailing with the Traveller Central, which meant you had to loosen the main sheet a lot more, it would require a lot more main sheet in and out to control it. So there we go. That is what we've got there. All right. Nick, how do you judge the significance of the pin boat end bias when it is worth starting on port tack? Yeah, it's a good question. So this is for those of you who are slightly newer to it all, this is all talking about the start line in a race. So on a start line in a race, how far over can I go? Like there. At the right side, the starboard side of the start line, there'll be a boat. This is called the committee boat. This will be the boat with the flags on it. And then at the other end of the start line will either be a buoy, or what we had at the Worlds was another boat with a flag on it. And that is called the pin end of the start line. So Nick's question is, how do you judge the significance of the pin end boat end bias? Well, we could go into a lot of science. Well, not that much science, of course, but really the best way to decide which end of the line, if we're not going into which side of the course is favoured, and we're just talking start line, then if the line is completely square to the wind, then in an ideal world, if you're starting on your own, there's not going to be any traffic, then the committee boat end is always going to be favoured, because if we start, so that is like if we're starting at 45 degrees to the wind there on that upwind point of sail, this boat has already got a significant distance advantage over this boat at the time of the start, which means the committee boat end is always going to be favoured if the start line is completely square to the wind. This is why a good race officer won't often set the start line with the wind completely square, because it will mean there's only one place to get off the start line if you're going to do well. Whereas what a good race officer will do is, I'm not going to move the start line, I'm going to move the wind. So what a good race officer will do, will have the wind slightly coming from the left to the start line. And then that means that the boats are going to be pointing a lot further this way when they start, which means, depending on the amount of left coming onto the start line, it means it's no longer going to be like pole position to get in next to the committee boat. It's like, if it's as slightly from the left, it's going to be a much more even start line, where every single person getting off the start line, if they're in the front row and they've got clean wind, they're going to be pretty even. Whereas if we're coming more over wind more from the left, then it becomes what we call a pin end bias line, where it is more favourite to start down by the buoy. If you saw the start of race 7 from the Tornado Worlds, you'll see that Bad Boy 94 owned the pin. Yeah, we started right next to the pin. There was a load of port bias on the start line, and we owned it so much that we could have taken a Joyrider TV sticker and slapped it on the pin, because we owned the pin. Yeah, there are varying degrees of port bias on a normal start line. One of the best ways well, all right, first, the way that people say you should work out what bias you've got on the start line is they might say, go and sit on the start line, turn your boat head to wind, look along the front beam and see how far forwards that is of the committee boat. And then the further forwards it is, the more you want to get away from the committee boat to start. But I would say you don't need to go that technical. What you can do, if you know what your kind of upwind angles are on your boat, once the start line is set, which would usually be like 5 minutes before the start, just go and have a little practice run at sailing across the start line. So come in from back here and then sail across the start line and just see what sort of angle you get. And like here, the angle that we're crossing the start line is pretty slim, which immediately tells us that the pin end is bias. And the more that you do that, the easier it will get. There we go. I think that's what we're talking about here. So that is how I would decide how far down the line to start. And then should you be starting on port tack, then starting on port tack, that then is the only time you'd start on port tack, which isn't to do with the bias on the line, would be if the race officer has got it wrong and the wind is so far from the left that you can't actually cross the start line on starboard tack, which in a high level event, the race committee would be better than that and they wouldn't actually allow that to happen. But in like a club event, maybe there's a wind shift before the start. So it's not the race committee's fault. It's just one of those things. And then if you can't cross the start line on starboard tack, then you might want to, then you're going to have to go off on port. But the usual reason that we're not starting on port tack is because you're going to have all these boats on starboard tack with right of way in your face. But the time when starting on port tack is favoured, especially in catamaran sailing, is if this side of the course is much better. So if the wind is stronger, or if perhaps there's a wind bend this way, which means when you tack, you go a lot more directly to the buoy, then that is the reason why you might want to start on port tack. But starting on port tack, if the rest of the fleet or the majority of the fleet are starting on starboard, is a very high risk maneuver because you have not got right of way over the other boats and you have to have your eyes absolutely on stalks out of the boat and then doing a lot of dumping the main sheet, going around. There was one collision in the first race of the Worlds where one of the boats tacked off shortly after the start onto port and just had a little bit of misjudgment ducking one of the other boats and unfortunately hit the boat so hard that it split the bows open. Ouch. Yeah, you can actually see that at the start of race one on my race one video. If you look carefully just after the start, you can see that collision happen. So there we go. All right, I think that's a fairly decent answer there, Nick. All right, gear report, that's Jeff says, earlier is better as the day progresses. I get too busy, know how it feels. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think maybe we'll be nice to stick to a time, and then the only time that I'd have to change that would be if it was just too windy to be able to not go out on the water, or other reasons, of course. But yeah, I'll come up with a decision. I'll make it known. But as it stands, let's say 4 o'clock next week Greek time is when we're going to be doing the Q&A. All right. Knack Daddy says, yeah, same as everyone. Wow, a gear report sighting. Oh, yes. All right, it's exactly 30 minutes. I'm going to take a commercial break. And welcome back. Incidentally, if you want to get a bottle like this, excellent Christmas gifts. Oh, yes, get in early for Christmas. Get onto totaljoyrider.com. Get yourself one of these bottles. If you're drinking out of a plastic bottle these days, unless it's like a biking one with which you reuse, people pull a face at you because you're not doing your bit to drink out of a metal bottle. So there we go. All right, we've got Russell on board. Hi, Russell. Time to start sailing the C2 again. Oh, yes. Get ready for Worlds next year in Florida. Start campaigning now and bring that beautiful C2 to the US in October 2022. Oh, my word. Yes, that is some fighting talk there. I would absolutely love to. But it all sounds like a bit of a stretch. If the event is in October, I think I'd have to ship the boat a lot sooner. What would it be, like 8 weeks before? Which I think the guests of Wildwind Sailing Holidays might have something to say about that. But I would love to. What I am sort of half planning at the moment, and this is going to be a bit of a shocker, you're going to drop your pint on this one, is I'm thinking about coming to the US in June next year, to Texas, to get involved with the... I should have prepared and known what the event was called, but there's the 50th anniversary Prindle competition in Texas in June next year. If you're a Prindle sailor, you should check it out. I'll be, I'm in touch with Chris, who is one of the event organizers, who is feeding me information, but he's really trying to make it a massive event. And I've actually looked up flights from Athens to Texas, to various places in Texas, and it is feasible. So I'm going to try to get over there at that time, which again means that coming to Florida in October is a bit more of a stretch. Yeah, nice thinking there, Jeff. I bet someone would be happy for Joe to jump on a boat with them so he doesn't have to ship his boat. Yeah, it's an option. Could come to America twice in 1 year. I've never actually been. So apart from in airports. Tanaj, Manos, hi. Glad you could tune in. Thanks for coming. Raw Visions, hello. Yo, my man, teaching. Yeah, I thought so too. Andreas. That's Andreas, who is from Pro Sport 24, and he would also welcome many C2 videos. Yeah, so as far as this season goes, all the boats have been put to bed, so I won't be able to make any new videos, but I've got a couple in my back pocket which I filmed during the summer, so I will be sort of releasing those as we go. The first one is actually tomorrow, when I've got an FX1 video, in fact, which I think is quite a good insight into sort of moderate to strong winds, sailing single-handed with the spinnaker. How do you manage doing all those things at once when the boat is careering out of control? We'll be looking at that. That'll be at 5:30 tomorrow. So 5:30 will remain to be the when any videos are going out time. Okay, Manos. Hey, it's Joe here from Joyrider TV. Today we're going to, yes. And he continues to say, can you help me find a laser race standard, or I don't know, squinty face? I can, or XD. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, if you're looking for any parts, or if you're selling any parts, any boat parts, send me an email to the usual email address, and I'll put a short video together to see if we can find what it is that you're looking for. And we've got Robert on board. Howdy from the mountains of New Hampshire, USA. Thanks for the Joyrider t-shirt. It arrived the other day. Oh yeah, great stuff. Thanks for your custom. And Robert continues, I saw a brand new catamaran shipped from Germany this week. It was an iCat 15. Do you know anything about this other than the fact that it's a foiling catamaran? Yeah, it's one of this new generation of very user-friendly foiling catamarans. But that is pretty much as far as it goes. As for what do I know about it? Yes, it foils. Yes, it's user-friendly, very nicely built. And if iCat would like to send me one, then I could obviously give a lot more information about that. All right. I thought I might just go on to some preloaded questions. Just got a few. So I'm just going to, how do I do this? All right. So first preloaded question is from Bill in North Carolina. He says, or I could cut a long story short here. I know what I've read this already. All right. Long story short, this is it's a sail damage question. So what Bill has got is this: if this is the front edge of the sail, this is the bolt rope, the rope that goes up the mast track. This is the plastic cap where the batten locates. So this is the batten pocket. And then he's got a split here. This is quite common, especially if you're pulling your sail up and down quite a lot. Perhaps if you're pulling the sail up a lot without lubricating it. So even as we've said before, just lubricating it with water makes one heck of a difference to the amount of friction. Another reason that these splits can occur at the batten pockets might be if you've got your battens in really tight. Then that can cause these small tears to appear. And he said, what is going to be the way to get that repaired? He said, can he do it with a bit of self-adhesive and some stitching? Now, I would say for these type of jobs, it is unfortunately a take it to a sailmaker job, because when you put a new piece of cloth on there, there should, in theory, be a bit of reinforcement on there already, which would be like that. So the ideal would be for the sailmaker to take off this piece of reinforcement, get a new piece. I believe they used like a cloth which has got like a Teflon kind of coating to it, and then stitch it in. But the trick is that it needs to be stitched really tight up against the bolt rope. Otherwise, you're going to have a bit that jams all the time. So it's definitely a sailmaker job. You could have a go at doing it yourself, but if there's absolutely no chance of getting it to a sailmaker, then get a bit of cloth wrapped around there, then stitch it as tight into the luff, to the bolt rope as you can. And then what you'd also need to do is put a few stitches through the bolt rope at each end, maybe in the middle. It'd be quite a tough job, but maybe you could do it. But it is a sailmaker job. And usually, if there's one that's gone, there's going to be more than one, because the sail is all aging at the same rate. So that is going to, they could obviously fix a load at the same time. If you want to save money at the sailmakers, what you could do is, firstly, make sure your sails are clean and dry. Get any salt off them, give them a good wash, dunk them in your swimming pool, dry them out, make sure they're totally dry. Remove the battens, remove the batten caps as well, which might involve drilling out some rivets. but that means that you're not paying the sailmaker to do a job that you can do. And basically, all sailmakers seem to be extremely busy all of the time. So they're going to thank you for doing some of the preparation for that repair. However, sometimes you might get a rip on the batten pocket like here. Perhaps about the 4th or 5th batten up, it might just occasionally go against the shroud and get a rip in it there. Now, this area of the sail, it's not a load-bearing area, and you can repair this yourself. But or with a bit of self-adhesive Dacron, but what you need to do, you don't want it adhesing to the batten inside, so you'd want to cut a piece about yay and stick it the other way onto that, so that then it doesn't stick to the batten. Does everyone follow? So that is one you could do yourself. Another one is perhaps if your batten has been too loose and you've got split here where your batten is actually poked out like that. Ooh, then these ones, you're going to be surprised here. I'm quite happy just to leave those as they are, because they don't get any worse, because there's no load there at all. You could take the end cap off, put a bit of tape on, and then put the end cap back on. But there we go. That is all that we've got on this batten pocket repair kind of stuff. Hope that's all right there, Bill. All right, so on to the next preloaded question. And this is from Andre in Russia. I think Russia is going to become the next big catamaran sailing nation, by the way. I can feel it coming. All right, so Andre's question is about tacking, and are there any benefits to moving the position of the helm on the crew during the tack to kind of optimize it? We did look at this a little bit in some of the preparation videos for the Tornado Worlds, but I'm going to draw, maybe I'll draw 3 boats. Is this still on? Yeah. All right. And yes, in case you're asking, I am pretty decent at noughts and crosses on a good day. So wind, of course, coming down the board. And let's say we're starting off here and we're going for a tack over to here. So if we're talking light wind tacking, then there are some things that we can do to reduce the amount of drag, but it does need to be rehearsed. One thing in light wind sailing is the more movements that you have around the boat, if you're bouncing across the trampoline and the whole boat is bouncing, you're disturbing the flow of air and the flow of water, which means you're more likely to stop the boat than speed it up. But if you can tiptoe across the boat like some sort of ballerina, then this is what would be absolutely optimal. All right, so which hull has to move more distance? It is this hull, the outside hull, has to turn further than the inside hull as we go into the tack. So if we can put more weight on the inside hull, take some weight off the outside hull, that is going to speed our tack. So yeah, so there's Manos with can you roll tack a 16? This is kind of what we're looking at. There's some of the guys in the Tornado fleet who are really going for the roll tacking in the light winds, and they're getting the weight really quite outboard on this side going into the tack. So as soon as the boat gets head to wind, this hull is pretty much coming out of the water, and they're not going onto that hull until they're through the wind. And then as they go onto that hull, it gives it a real pump forwards, and they get a load of extra boat speed out of the tack, like in a roll tack in a monohull. But what I would say is moving to the back, because if we're moving to the back, we're lifting the bows, we're pivoting the boat on the centerboards if you've got them, and the rudders. So we're using all of our pivoting, turning pieces more, and we're lifting the bows, so we haven't got the bows dragging. So if we can go to the back, right over on the side, as we go into the tack, this is going to give us the most benefit going into the tack. But again, that is if we can move around the boat without disturbing the airflow or the flow of water too much. If you are going to be disturbing it, then better than that is just to tack as you would do normally as the helm, and the crew just to stay on this side for longer. If the crew's been like here, move to here. If the crew's been here, he's going to have to move across the boat at some point. So move across before the tack and then tack the boat. So now that you're here, light winds, crew stays on the leeward side. I'd say the helm just does what is necessary. So moving across the boat. And then as soon as you get through the wind, then you want to get forwards, look forwards as soon as you can and get into your racing position to optimize the tack. Boom. All right. So the difference will come as the wind gets more and you don't want to capsize. All right, here we go. So tacking when it's windy, and as I've said many times, just to once again go through high wind tacking, it's not about going fast. It's about pointing close to the wind to start with a lot of tension in the main sheet before you go into the wind. Very important. And then in a high wind tack, you don't want to be spending time at the back of the boat because you are more likely to capsize backwards if it's a 16 or a 14 especially. So instead, what would we do? Before we go into the tack, the helm would be in a pretty similar position. Crew would be moving in from the trapeze about there. And then when the boat is head to wind, the crew would want to be at the front corner of the trampoline on the new side to stop the bows from coming up in the air. The helm just doing what is necessary. And then as soon as you can, coming out of the tack, double trapezing for glory. Woohoo! All right. So there we go. Hope that was a good answer there, Andre. And good luck with your cat sailing in Russia. Hope to hear some more about it soon. All right. Okay, back to that sail repair. Willis is saying, I was told to drill out the pins, fix it, and get stainless screw hardware if you don't have a riveter to make it tight enough. Yeah, with the replacement of the, yeah, you can, with those batten caps, you can either replace them with rivets, but it's not pop rivets for those. It's the kind of rivets that you bang with a hammer and you flatten them. Or you can use little nuts and bolts, which is generally what we do after we've drilled out the original rivets, because I've never managed to get a satisfactory result with those other types of rivet. Okay, Manos says, just bought my first boat, 14. Nice. We've got Finn time lapse in Australia. Yes. He only needs $1,000 more before he can get a boat. All right, let's just look that up. 1,000 or is that how you do that? Os to USD. Let's go to USD. Oh, hello. Where are we off to here? Okay. Oh, right. So that would be 741 US dollars needed. All right. Good luck with that, Finn time lapse. All right. Manos has got a Hobie Getaway secondhand. Very nice. All right. Willis says, that's right. Get rid of your exes. Yeah. There we go. All right. I think I've got one more preloaded question. Oh, this is from Robert. He's talking about battens, jib battens specifically. And he's got an original 1985 Hobie 16. And he's recently purchased a 2020 jib. Nice. And he says, I use the same battens, or are the lengths different? Of course, trying to stop the battens from hanging up on the sails. I think, in my experience, and this is on the boats from Hobie Europe, they changed the design of how the battens are kept in on the jib. Must have been around 2005, I think. And originally, if this is the leech of the jib, there's the batten pocket. You'd have a little bit of batten that sticks out and a rope that ties the batten in. Then people were getting really quite hacked off with the battens catching on the jib halyard. This is going to be a problem all the time for a Hobie 16 sailor. So what they did is they changed it at Hobie Europe, like on a lot of boats, where they actually put Velcro that closed the batten pocket, so the batten was actually flush with the back of the sail. If this is the same as with your boat, Robert, it is likely that your original battens are going to be just a bead too long for the new jib. So it's commitment time. Are you ever going to need to put battens back in your old jib? If you think there's if you're thinking, I'm going to use the old jib, let's say, I'm going to use the old jib just for daily use. I'll use the new jib for weekends and racing. Nice. Then you'll need to buy another set of jib battens. They don't necessarily have to be Hobie battens unless you are going to be competing, when I think in the 16 class, you do need to be using the right battens. But if you're not ever thinking of using your old jib again, then you just need to cut the battens down. Now, when you're cutting battens down, I always cut them deliberately a little bit too long. So on here, they'll just be a little bit sticking out, because if it's a jib that hasn't been used before, it is going to stretch a little bit over time. And if you've cut your battens exactly the right length, and then it's good to start with, but then you start seeing these these vertical creases in the batten pocket after a couple of sails, you're going to be a bit stuffed to get them in. Whereas if you've cut them a little bit long, yes, you're going to hit this into the mast a bit more, but after a couple of sails, then you could put them in a bit tighter and hopefully you'll have them the right length. There we go. Good quality information there. I'd say also, this is just thinking out loud. If you've got a new jib with this Velcro sealing kind of thing, one of our most common damages to the 16 jib, and of course, you have to consider that at Wildwind, we are really an accelerated what is going to go wrong with your boat test center. I'd say our boats probably, let's use the word degrade, at approximately 10 times the speed of a normal boat. All right, let's say 5 times the speed. So our boats are going to find things wrong with them 5 times quicker than most people's boats because of how often they're getting used. So we do find that this is the major failing part on a Hobie 16 jib. So if you've got a brand new jib, how about you could try this? Just take a piece of what's called insignia sailcloth, which is the sailcloth that's used for sail numbers, but it's basically self-adhesive, woven, Dacron type sailcloth. Cut a piece twice the size of that, put a fold in it, put your batten in, then stick that on the outside as a bit of reinforcement on that part of the sail. Worth a look? I don't know. You could try it. Let me know. If it doesn't work, you just pull it off. Easy. All right. So there we go. That's all the preloaded questions. There seems to have been a bit of chat between Manos and Timelapse Finn in the comments. I think they're just chatting. Nice. Well, good luck to you guys. Do a vid on the foiling laser at Wildwind. Oh, yes, that is a great shout, actually. Yeah, because the only videos I've done with the foiling laser have been kind of like a, wow, it's foiling laser videos rather than any sort of explanation or live commentary. So that will be coming up soon. All right, we got Roger. How you doing? I've turned on the reminders for your channel 3 or 4 times now. YouTube never sends notifications. That is outrageous. Yeah, because what I try to do with these live videos is I try to set them up a good couple of hours in advance. And then I think once they've been set up and scheduled, then that means that people can see when it is that they're going to happen if you go to my channel. But of course, if YouTube were to send you an email, that would be very handy. And again, apologies for starting earlier this week, but I did have a scheduling conflict and I couldn't move the other item. So sorry to do this to you, Roger, but at this point, I'm going to sign off. Been going for an hour now. So thanks very much to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to everybody for their continued support of Joyrider TV. Yes, the season at Wildwind has finished. And yes, the amount of videos that are getting released is going to be in decline at the moment for the winter. All right, just got some other pieces coming in. Manos says, today they're attempting to speed stick with a foiling laser, let's say. Okay, all right, gotcha. Yes, that sounds like a good plan. All right, we got Jeff M. Nakra, 2 days regattas in open class. Going to be a big weekend, 8 races with us. Everybody wish Jeff in Hong Kong the best of luck with all that. Manos, Jacobo is on board, 4th at the British Nationals, doing a great job. He was here a little while ago. Thomas and Pippi, nice to see and hear you too. Although I can't hear you or see you, all I can do is guess that that is you. Roger, have a great winter. Come back soon. Yeah, I'll still be okay. Here's the schedule. The Q&A will go on every week at the new time of 4 o'clock Greek time And then once every 2 weeks, we'll be having Show Us Your Cat. And then anything else that I happen to be up to that I think would be interesting, I'll put that out as well. So there we go. Okay. Make sure you have YouTube notifications set to all. That is a top tip from Jeff at gearreport.com. Do be sure to check out gearreport.com. Lots of really good outdoor gear. If you like a bit of shooting, Jeff's no stranger to a bit of shooting. If you like Humvees, then gearreport.com. Willis, woke up in time to be 12 minutes late today. That's good. Please don't fire me. All right, see you next week. No, can you read it like an intro? Okay, all right. All right, let's see if we can do that. Hello, yes, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV. Today, we are attempting the speed stick with a foiling laser in 20 knots of wind. So let's go and see what is going to happen there on the foiling laser. Boom. There you go. I hope that was what you had in mind. Okay, Thomas and Pippi. We will sail a small race on Sunday with the Viper. Good luck with that. Willis says good luck to Jeff. And good luck to all of you on your onward journey. Thanks very much once again for tuning in. And I'll see you next week with some more of this. So, yeah, get your preload. If you're going to tune in live, don't worry about the preloaded questions. But if you're not, then do. So there we go. Thank you. Oh, don't forget, totaljoyrider.com. If you're stuck for Christmas gift ideas for people who are worth spending about 20 quid on, then I've done some new designs on the water bottles and very good. And the water does taste better. It's true.